Hey guys, we're live, I think.
Yes,
Yes, we're live.
we
Okay.
are live.
So I think we're going to wait a minute for a few people or
Just adjust the
little
camera.
camera adjustments.
Yep, no, I think we're good. Nope,
Good to go?
Yep, I see people on.
Sweet.
We are all set.
Okay. Well, listen, guys, I just wanted to say thank you so much for, well, just supporting us through all these years. And, more recently, if you were able to watch the 2 hour special, I think it was a really great special. We did a lot of different things with it. We shot it different. I think it looked a little different, and I thought it was a great show. I don't think it's easy to, carry an audience for 2 hours, and the show's ratings were great. And so we're super excited about that. So I figured we'd get right into it. Start answering some questions. I have my lovely assistant and wife Rachel on the other side of the camera here, and so she'll be working these questions out with me, and we'll see what we can do.
Okay, so we gathered a handful of questions from online that people have submitted. First question. Was it hard to relinquish your creativity for the sake of being with your dad?
Yeah, I think with this 2 hour special, it was the hardest part of the show, to be honest with you. Really being so used to being it was really foreign for me. You got to remember, I hadn't worked with my father for 10 years, so to give up that kind of control, something that's so incredibly important to me, it was very difficult. But I quickly realized what I was in it for, and once I got past this idea that once I realized there was going to be no real collaboration creatively, I just had to lay it down and put it aside and not do it begrudgingly either. I knew I had to do it and be okay and be comfortable with the situation, and I was, because ultimately I just wanted to work with my father in any capacity, whether it was building the bike, which is what it ended up being, or doing just about anything, and that's kind of what I settled into. So yeah, I mean, the short answer is it was hard, but once I refocused on really what was important, it got easy pretty quick.
Do you ever get to talk to Vinnie anymore?
I do. I talk to Vinnie every so often. We don't talk as much as we did back together all the time, but certainly we've been talking more often lately, and it's fun because I'll get to it at the end, but we're going to be working on a project together that I think is going to be cool.
How different would the bike have looked if your vision was used?
Well, I mean, I think two things. If it was just PJD, no OCC, the bike would have been completely different. Obviously, our styles are so extreme. I would have built a much more robust, lower style, like I like, heavily themed bike. So I think it would have represented the client from the standpoint of the way they look, or to me, the way they would have built a bike had they built it. That's just the way I like to do things, and that's my opinion. But certainly it would have looked nothing the way it did. And I'm not knocking the way it looked. It just, if the creative was coming from the PJD side, I think you all know it would have been a completely different bike.
Will you ever consider just a father and son build? No clients, no customers, no other employees, just you and your father?
I would consider a father and son build, no clients or anything like that. There's some costs associated with this whole thing that are not cheap, so that's something to take into consideration. And I think that's partially why we chose to go with a client for this. It also creates, there's a little bit more, parameters. As you notice, a lot of the back and forth was about the creative, which pertained to the client in the end. So I do think I would be perfectly fine just building a bike with him for no one, just together for fun, like we did really when it started. We did builds like that. So yeah, I'd be wide open to it.
On OCC's podcast, they mentioned that originally you had a client, but at the 0 hour, they claimed that the client was no longer an option. Can you clarify, as there is two sides to the story? What happened at the beginning of the project and how ABC came into the picture?
Yeah, so in the beginning of this whole thing, I did have a client, but you have to understand, in the world of television, these things take a really long time. So I lined up a client, and then between getting my father to do the build, which was a process, and Discovery finally greenlighting it, there was so many months that went by between when I first talked to my client and it actually happened, that by the time I circled back and had a definitive answer, they had already budgeted the money they were going to spend on the bike elsewhere. So it was a bit tricky because I the whole time we were preparing, I said, yeah, I got the client, I got the client. And then I had to go and tell my father, well, bad news. I don't have the client. And that was a little challenging. But what I will say is the whole time we were preparing for me having the client, I was giving him all kinds of creative freedom because I knew he needed that. So he was ordering the frame and the motor, and then I was going to come around everything that he wanted to do and put my twist on it. And that was always the way. Now, when the client shifted, that obviously, as you saw, changed completely from where we were going. But I'll tell you, it was a blessing in disguise because I think if it was my client, it would have been a tougher show to do. I think the fact that they had control and they were not really willing to relinquish any of it put them in the driver's seat and made it so that things kept progressing. And I think once I laid back and said, let's just do it, things kept moving forward. I just wonder if I was really having, because it would have been really hard for me to like give creative control to anybody else and me and having it be my client, because I'm so used to giving them 100% of what I think they should have. It would have been a challenge, and I don't think it may not have panned out in the end. I don't know. We may not have even finished the episodes, to be honest with you. So I think it really worked out well that they got the client, and ultimately, stuff happens.
Do you think you will outgrow your current shop, and what's the plan if you did?
Yeah, it's funny. I'm in a smaller shop than I've ever been in. And the first shop was great, but it was big and expensive, a lot of overhead. And, honestly, moving to the shop I'm in now that I've been in for 4 years now, I've been in that shop.
Yeah.
For 4 years, it's a smaller location, but I have a showroom where people can come from all over the world and see the bikes, buy t-shirts and hats, which has been really nice. It really has. And then a back room that's half the size of my old shop. And we did the past 2 seasons of American Chopper. And I feel like we did as good a work in that space as we've done anywhere, honestly. I mean, some of the best bikes ever, and with a smaller crew. So really efficient, even from a physicality standpoint. It's like the way you're set up in a shop is so critical. And the new shop really was like, you walk 15 feet, from the pipe bender to the lift, where the old shop, I mean, you walked a couple miles a day, which really you wouldn't think about it, but at the end of the month, you're killing it a lot of time. And, time is something that is not on our side when we're filming the show. So, really great. Had to get a smaller water jet, and made a few adjustments, but I love working in that tighter environment. It feels a little bit more artisan. Everything's right where you want it. You can talk to people across the room. I got 5 lifts. I mean, it's a little tight, but
What has been the most difficult thing you've had to do as a relatively new father?
As a relatively new father. Well, I mean, for me, that's an interesting question. I mean, I feel like, just being a father is challenging, right? Because you especially with your first child and not really knowing exactly always the right thing to do. But I think the most challenging thing for me has been when he's been sick, especially when he was younger and couldn't communicate. That's very difficult. And if you have kids, you know what I'm talking about. It's like you would just want to take their pain away. And so I think that's been one of the more difficult things. And then, just knowing that you're doing the right thing and you make mistakes and you want to bring them up the right way, and you feel very, very responsible for him, as you should. So, but he's 5 now. He's my buddy, and he's getting so big, and he communicates so well, and I got to tell you, right now he's at a very fun age, and we're having a lot of fun with this quarantine stuff, and not going out. I mean, we're spending every single day together. That's the upside to what's happening out there right now for me, is just a lot of quality family time.
Would you ever do your own show on Discovery if your father didn't want to do the show anymore?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I do my own show in a heartbeat. If my father didn't want to do the show, I certainly would do it because, I mean, I'm 45, he's 71, and I feel like I'm in my prime. I'm just getting started, especially creatively, and I have all this wherewithal that I even didn't have in the past, and a super solid team. We're super. I'd probably, as long as he wanted to do it, I'd do it with him because I think there's something to be said for that. I know that this 2 hour special didn't really play out the way I had planned it, or in some ways how I had hoped it would work out. But that's not going to stop me from, continuing to kind of, step into that place and see what happens. In other words, I'm not going to give up. But certainly, if the opportunity arises and there's, a situation where my father's not involved, of course I'm going to do that because, like I said, we're just getting started. And outside the box, we can keep the feel of American Chopper, but do some new and exciting things.
How do you feel about Hudson following in your footsteps?
I mean, I feel like, look, I want him to be his own guy, right? We named him Hudson and not Paul Jr. because, at the end of the day, we want him to be his own person. But I would love for him to follow my footsteps. I will say this. He is so creative. This kid is so unbelievable creative. He is constantly making things and building things, and you give him Legos and he doesn't want to build what's on the box. He wants to build what's he called?
Junk robots.
Junk robots. He just builds all these junk robots. Like, he doesn't care about the dragon on the cover. He wants to build junk robots. The other day we were taking his old car seat out and putting a booster seat in, and he said, "Hey Dad, what are you doing with that?" And I said, "Well, I'm probably just going to put it in the garage." He goes, "Good, let's save it for parts." So that's the way he thinks. He just thinks that way, and he really doesn't come to the shop with me that much. So he just seems to have like a mechanical thought process that is just like natural. So I would love for him to work with me down the road, but I want him to do. I'm going to encourage him in his gifting. I'm going to keep nourishing that because I think a lot of the times people don't get that. They don't get that type of encouragement, and I think it's super.
Oh, I think we're back on.
You guys got me?
I think so. Okay. Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah, it was just buffering.
Sorry, guys.
We have
We're
all sorts
buffering.
of issues over here, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see. We have 2 more questions. OCC has mentioned.
I mean, I've heard this argument from OCC about the editing making them look bad. I think especially from my father. Here's the problem I have. Like, from an editing standpoint, there's parameters, right? Editing isn't like we're not CG'd. What you say, you said it, right? And when you do or act a certain way and it's caught on camera, then you did it. There's no way to back out of it, So it's kind of an absolute scenario. And so I just think, I don't know. My thought is, if you don't like the way you look, then you should probably change the way you behave. That's kind of what I would say about it, honestly. Because at the end of the day, I mean, that's what it comes down to. I don't believe any editing, or I don't believe that my father has ever been edited to look bad. I just think sometimes when it airs, which, remember, we don't see the show until it airs. We have no editing control or anything. So I think sometimes when he sees it, he doesn't necessarily like what he sees. And so I think that's what that's about.
What are you currently working on? Bikes, outside projects, something totally different?
Yeah, so I mean, currently, and this is kind of exciting because part of doing this Q&A tonight is to make the announcement about an online-based competition, which is called the Next American Innovator. This thing really stemmed from all these years of you guys coming out and supporting me and watching me do what I do, and I've been thinking about, how do I pay it back? And this is a perfect competition platform for me to give you guys an opportunity to put it out there and show your skill set. It's an online competition where motorcycle and car customizers can come and show their skills and compete for prizes, which is super cool. And we're going to have some great stuff that we're going to be having for prizes. It's a grassroots, family-friendly, give back, pay it forward type program. Yeah, no, that's a lot, but that's kind of how we're going to encapsulate this thing. We want it to be fun for everyone. And we're going to jump off right out of the gate. We're calling it round one, which is the first one of the Next American Innovator. And it's going to be the 125cc motorcycle class. So this is kind of cool because I feel like there's a whole culture around this. And I like it because you might not think I would go this route. Maybe you think I go custom bikes or choppers or, some of the bigger bikes. But I just think it's such a neat class and there's so many people involved. And here's the parameters, okay? It just has to start life as a 125cc motorcycle. It could be whatever it wants to be today, but it had to be born a 125cc motorcycle. I think that's how we're going to keep it within the constraints of how we're going to judge it. The criteria: originality, design, creativity, and above all else, innovation. And I think that's going to be all of the entries received before August 24th, 2020 at midnight. So you guys just got to get your entries in before that time period if you're interested. So the judges are myself and Freddie Brewer. We're the head judges. And then we have 4 guest judges. It's Adam Sandoval, Ari Henning, Zach Quartz, and last but not least, Vinnie DiMartino. So this is great, guys, because I'm excited to work with all these other guys. The judges are great. They're all experts in their own areas. They bring so much validity. If you know some of these guys, you know what I'm talking about. But of course, I have history with Vinny, and I just think we both love this kind of stuff. And I really feel like at the end of the day, it's going to be a real well-rounded group of judges, and we're going to have a ton of fun doing it. You'll have the opportunity to win one of 2 incredible grand prizes, courtesy of Paris, Honda, and Yamaha. These guys are hooking us up, okay? Judges' pick is going to be a 2020 Honda Super Cub, and then People's Choice is going to be a 2020 Honda Monkey. So, and I love the way these bikes look. They are brand spanking new, and these guys are hooking us up with some fantastic prizes. And here's what's great. Even if you don't enter, you can follow along. And then in the end, you could weigh in for People's Choice. And I think that's really cool. You guys can have a say, even if you're not into bikes, you can follow the content, you could watch, and we'll give you updates as to how this whole thing is going to flow out. But it's for everyone. And I think, one of the great things is we're starting with this, but we're going to go pretty broad with this thing. We're going to bring in all different stuff. And in the end, I feel like we're going to have a little something for everybody by the end of this year of competition. More details and contest rules and entry form can be found at thenextamericaninnovator.com. So I just want to say thanks, guys, for tuning in. Again, this is super exciting, online competition, and something that, man, I was like, this is it. This is what we have to pay it forward. This is how we get to showcase you, okay, out there, especially in this day and age right now where people aren't able to show off their cars or motorcycles. All these car shows are canceled, and I think this is a perfect platform where we can literally have a global audience if you're the customizer, and we can really shine a light on you, and I think that could be a lot of fun. So again, check us out at thenextamericaninnovator.com, and thanks for watching.